Hello, welcome back. It's Wade, out for a little ride this morning. And this morning I'd like to talk about the reasons why I chose the Honda CRF250L as the bike I would purchase after 25 years of not riding. And there was multiple criteria that I looked at, and there were multiple bikes that I looked at. And first off, it's this is my opinion. So, don't get mad if you chose a different bike or you don't like the reasons why I chose the bike I chose. So, first off, let's see if I can run down the bikes correctly that I looked at. And I will put the descriptions of the models on the screen. So, first off, we have the Honda CRF250L. We have the Yamaha WR250R, the Kawasaki KLX250. Then we have the KTM 250EXC-F. And finally we have the Suzuki, the DR200S, I believe it is. So those are the 5 bikes that I was looking at. And there was a couple reasons or a couple criteria that I compared them each with. And let me see if I can break down the criteria really quickly. The criteria was, one of them was the price. One was the maintenance intervals, thus the long-term cost. Then we had the technology, ease of use was the next one, and finally color. So let's see if I can go through each of these and talk about each criteria and how each bike compares to each other. As far as I could find from the research that I did. So first off, we have price. That one's a pretty easy one. I guess it also depends on where you're at. I bought mine in Nova Scotia, so we have different costs as far as PLPDs and taxes and stuff like that. So I'll go with roughly the base prices. And the first off, I'll go from high to low. And the highest with, as far as I could tell, over $12,000 was the KTM, followed by the Yamaha at 7,500. I believe is 7,500. Again, I will put the links to all the prices that I could find. Then third, we had the Honda coming in at 58-ish. The Kawasaki, $200 less at 56. And then finally we had the Suzuki coming in at just around 5,000. So you can see the Honda falls in about the middle, and once all out the door, it was still less than the Yamaha, and far less than the KTM. And the reason why I went mid-range for prices is I had no gear, as I talked about before, and I had to purchase all gear from scratch, and that cost $1,000+ So I took that into consideration when buying the bike. Then we have the maintenance, and I'll say the maintenance, I kind of looked at the intervals between oil changes and major component changes and stuff like that, or component checks. And roughly after the first check, the Honda was the best maintenance, coming in at every 12,000 kilometers, followed by the Yamaha at 10,000 kilometers. And then we had the Kawasaki at 6, I believe. Again, I will link these. And fourth was the Suzuki at, I believe it was 5,000 kilometers, and then the KTM, which was in hours, the maintenance. So you can see the big difference in the bikes from 12,000 kilometers to hours. That's a big cost that you need to consider. And I'd rather be riding than wrenching. So, third category, I kind of looked at technology. And, I don't want a bike that was stuck with, old technology. And so, looking at the technology, we have number one would be the most technological, I don't even know if that's a word, but we'd have the KTM, which is, cutting edge, I'll say. It's a race bike with lights on it, basically. And followed by the Yamaha, which is a really, really good bike. Then I'd say close third would be the Honda and the Kawasaki. Kawasaki may be a little bit higher in technology than the Honda. Now that they kind of did some model changes a few years ago. And then finally, which is still really old technology, we'd have the Suzuki, which is carbureted and still air-cooled. Then my fourth criteria that I kind of looked at, and this was kind of a big one for me because, like I said, I was gone for 25 years or off a bike for 25 years, and I didn't know how easy it would be to get back on. So I wanted something that I could actually drive and not struggle with. I want to turn around here because I don't want to go down too deep in that. We've done that before. So I wanted a bike I could drive, and something I wouldn't be fighting, I'll say. So as far as ease of use, I'll say the simplest one probably to use would be the Suzuki. It has a lower power. It has a lower seat if you're short, and probably be more forgiving. And going up from there, I'd say probably the Honda and the Kawasaki and this is all from other people's opinions and what I've read and videos I've watched. So I didn't ride each one of these, so I really can't say for sure. But then I'd say the Honda is a very forgiving bike. The power is smooth. I would assume the Kawasaki is very, very similar. And from what I've read, the Yamaha has more power, a little bit more power, but it is also a higher bike, and the power is not as smooth from what I could discover. And then we'd have the KTM, which would be, like I said, it's a race bike with lights on it, so it would be have a very, very strong power band, and probably least forgiving. And it is also the highest bike, I think at almost 39 inches high, something like that. It's a very high bike because it has, a very, very high clearance, and like I said, it is basically a race bike. And finally, my fifth criteria, the bike had to look good, color, and this was pretty much a no-brainer for me because my favorite color is red. And when Honda made the changes in 2007 to the graphics on the CRF, made it more red, took away some of the white, made it a much nicer looking bike, and so that's kind of why I went with that. And the other bike that was really a beautiful bike is the KTM, the orange. The orange is is a superb looking bike, but you know, it is what it is, I guess I'll say. So see if I can wrap this up now. So we had those 5 criterias. Overall, I'd say the Honda fell roughly middle to upper middle of the pack. Overall, and criteria that it won would be drivability-ish, very, very good, I'll say, and the maintenance and the color. So the Honda, I chose the Honda because it was a good solid bike and it met most of the criterias that I was looking at, and I had to buy gear and get back into the, I'll say, the sport. If I had gear already, I probably would have went with the Yamaha. And if I was mechanic and I had a ton of money, I would go with the KTM. And that's pretty much all I got to say. So, like I said, this is my opinion. And if you disagree, you know, don't get mad. Just say why you wouldn't have bought this bike, or why you would have bought it, or, you know, if you had different criteria that you looked at. I know people buy the bike, so, you know, I'm not the only one that likes the bike. And until next time, it's Wade up on the fire road, doing a little cruise. Talk to you later. Bye.